myself. Rest, let me introduce myself. I'm the original. Rest, let me introduce myself.
Hey everyone, it's Heath, your host for the Twitter Turf Podcast. Episode number 2 here. Kind of letting that beat hit everybody real quick. Notice that's a brand new intro that we've got. It's from Arcturus the Architect, local hip-hop musician. I want to give a shout out to Derek for putting us in contact with him, getting permission to use this for our podcast. It works perfectly with the show. Big fan of that, and big fan of, actually, I was listening to some of the music, man. It's real good. I hope people take an opportunity to listen to it. If you like what you hear on here, I know it's just a little snippet. You'll hear some more towards the end here at the show as well. We'll play some more, but again, it's Arcturus. You can check him out on reverbnation.com/Arcturus, or you can check him out on YouTube. Some of you guys might actually know his band, his group, Mad Row. He's got some single stuff out there. He's got some group stuff out there, so I encourage you guys to go check it out. Support the local people. You know, that's what Blue Turf Nation's all about as well, supporting local bloggers, local fans, getting all those perspectives out there and all those opinions. So, again, big shout out to everybody who gave us permission to use that. Derek, Arcturus, very, very, very welcomed addition to the show. A lot better than what YouTube has for us to pick from of their library of music. It's not pretty out there. So thanks again to you guys. So this week, you know, again, this is episode number 2. If you're just tuning in for the first time, hearing us out for the first time, the idea of this podcast is simply to bring the Twitter conversations to the podcast, allow myself to talk to you guys a little bit about what I'm seeing on Twitter, what I'm seeing just on the social media conversations. Blue Turf Nation, I think that's, again, it's kind of our niche. We're really active on Twitter, you know, and we see a lot of good conversations happen. And this week's episode is based all around the offense. We'll hit some of the questions at the end, and I want to thank everybody who sent in questions. We got more questions this week. I want to thank all the people who listened for the first time. For us to only promote it on Twitter, to have the response that we did, it was fantastic, and I really appreciate people giving me positive feedback and giving me things that people were interested in seeing us grow from. I do want to apologize now. I talked to everybody about trying to get Tammy on the podcast. Turns out we weren't able to figure it out this week. Hopefully we'll get it next week. Just a little bit of technical difficulties, I suppose. We're figuring these things out as we go. But I think that I'll hopefully get her on next week and get maybe Derek on and some other fan perspectives and give you guys more to think about, talk about, listen. Hopefully we get to the point where, you know, we've got this so figured out we can even get to callers and stuff like that. But for now, what I'll do is I'll take you guys' tweets that you guys send me, give you guys' shout outs, let people know your Twitter handle, and try to get people out there, you know, communicating with you guys. And hopefully this show continues to grow and it continues to be good and people enjoy it. So from that, we're going to kind of jump into the offense and just kind of talk to what's going on with Boise State's offense. I think right now, there's a lot of questions. I'm seeing it online. I'm seeing it at the games when I'm sitting there and listening and talking to my dad or whoever. It's what happened to Boise State's offense. What changed? What's the big difference? And why aren't we scoring points? And why aren't we doing, you know, big plays? And why aren't we doing things that we're just used to seeing? And the biggest word I see on Twitter is creativity. Where'd the creativity go? People are always wondering, you know, why is it that we're basically running, you know, a halfback dive and I give credit to Cheebs on that one if you guys are on Twitter, at El Chibo. He's a big Hawaii Boise State fan, but he always talks about the halfback dive because of Norm Chow. Long story. Anyways, we can get to that another time, but it's a lot of zone read, crossing routes, maybe a slant here or there, maybe a little pitch. You know, we see a lot of, with Kozart, you see the quarterback keep. But it doesn't seem like there's much going on. You don't see any deep balls. I mean, the trick play, I think the one trick play that stands out to me this season was the screen pass to Kozart. That was kind of a tricky play against San Diego State that, you know, got a first down. And then obviously he got the kind of pass, kind of lateral touchdown there against Wyoming. But we're not seeing, you know, I don't know, Statue of Liberty or you know, flea flickers, you know, wide receiver passes. We're just not seeing a lot of those things, but I don't think that's really what fans are concerned about. I think there's no diversity in the playbook. Like I said, I think for me, we've seen, a run pass option from Kozart, quarterback keeper from Kozart, a slant here, a couple passes there. a lot of crossing routes. I think right now all we're seeing in our passing game is crossing routes. It's either Cedric Wilson or Jake Rowe. We're not seeing a lot from the other wide receivers. We're not seeing a lot from the halfbacks coming out of the backfield catching the ball, something that McNichols was amazing at. We're just not seeing things. And I talked about it a little bit last week. We talked about the fact that, yeah, there's kind of a niche here that's working. But I think the concern is, will that work all season? Is that really going to get you a Mountain West title? Is that going to even get you in the Mountain West Conference title game? And I'm not confident it will. I don't think most people are. I think you got to score points in college football. I don't see us being LSU that had success holding teams to 9-3 games. I see that there's going to be opportunities. I mean, even if you look at Air Force is a perfect example on the schedule of a team that if you fall behind early, you have to pass to get out because they're going to eat the clock up. They're going to take up most of the game. Can we depend on Brett Rippon or Cozart or this play calling to make that happen? Which kind of leads me to one of my biggest gripes about this offense. You can take the creativity aspect and kind of throw it out even. My thing that I noticed in the last game that I was getting frustrated with, and I think there's been a few people who pointed this out as well, is when Rippon has a good pass. He makes a completion on a 3rd and long. And it looks good and everything, that confidence is growing. We see that confidence growing in him. We see him taken out immediately. And it kind of reminds me at the beginning of the season when Mahone made a good run, here comes Wolpen. Madison makes a good run, here comes Mahone. There's no opportunity for these guys to get into rhythm. And I know that the conversation's been, well, it makes defenses confused and it makes defenses have to prep for us very differently and all these different things. And that's fine if we're putting up 35 plus a game, but we're not. I just don't see it. I don't understand. Like, if it's so much more difficult for them to prep for, then why aren't we scoring more points? And I'm sure it is more difficult, and I'm not questioning that. It's just it doesn't seem like it's producing the way that it's going to need to at some point. At some point, like I said, there's going to be a game where we fall behind and you're going to have to rely on the passing game, and we don't pass. And we don't pass dynamically, and we don't have routes that make people go, oh, that was a play to get people open. I actually had a question, and I'll just kind of jump into the question early because it kind of plays into all of this. But the big question I had was, let me find it here to make sure I give the person the right credit here. But it was simply, how do we get the wide receivers more involved in the passing game? And that came from @PolarisMan17. The biggest thing for me, I think, is I would like to see some pick plays, some slant and goes, some deep balls, even just deep balls. We have been watching this season. How many deep passes have we actually had? 4 or 5, maybe. If I was Utah State coming into this game, I would have the exact same game plan that Boise State had against San Diego State, right? I'm putting everybody in the box, and I'm stopping Alexander Madison. And I'm going to say, you guys have to pass the ball. You guys are going to have to show us that you can throw it. You guys are going to have to show us that you guys can be creative. We'll see it. I know we're going to see it. Maybe Boise State can still execute and get yards and control the clock and get turnovers and have a good defense and things, but my gut says that that's not going to hold out all season. And if it doesn't, you're going to have to depend, in my opinion, on Brett Rippon. I know we've seen good things from Cozart. I know, he's actually had the more dynamic passes even. But to me, I still see Rippon as the better quarterback. And the good news is I've also seen him getting more confident. Oddly enough, in his running. I just think if you look at it, it's a weird thing. You wouldn't have thought about it. But the last 2 games, Brett Rippon's had these really great plays where he steps up into the pocket, sees that there's a running lane, doesn't question it, just takes off and goes. That's a guy who's seeing the field. That's a guy who's figuring it out. And that's a guy who's growing in confidence. And you see it in his throws as well. And I think that's where I come back to. I just want to see him have an opportunity to gain on that. He commits he completes a 3rd and long, gets us a first down. I love Cozart. He's been the reason we're doing what we're doing. I mean, I'm not taking anything away from the guy. But if we're going to do this 2 quarterback thing, when Rippon gives us something, you got to keep him out there. 3rd and long, he hits a 15-yard pass down the sideline or something, keep him in. Go quick tempo if you need to. He shows to be a little bit more effective in quick tempo. Get him back to the line, man. Get him his play and let him just throw the ball. Five quick throws or something like that. Just keep him going. I think if you do that, our passing game will happen. I think it will open up. I think if we take a few deep shots, especially if a team comes in and finally realizes that this team's only trying to run the ball, I think you're going to have some good success there. That kind of leads me into, what we've been talking about with the passing game. What else can we do? I don't think it's as simple as more shifts and motions, even more dynamic play calls. One of the tweets I had during the game last week that got a lot of people interested was simply, you can't put it all on the quarterbacks. We've had a lot of conversation about Rippon and his struggles this season. But where's Modster? Where's the other wide receivers? Most Boise State fans probably can't even name that many of them, because how many of them have actually been in the game? I know from watching the games that I've seen Octavius Evans get open down the field. He's just been overlooked. I think there's been a lot of people who are pointing out that, Rippon and Kozar are only making maybe 2 reads at the most, and that's Wilson and Rowe. And after that, it's get rid of the ball or run. And that, to me, is where we've got to go if we're going to have a much, much more dynamic season. Can we get to the 3rd receivers? Can we get to the 4th receivers? Can somebody else step up? You want to talk about a scary thought? Yeah, we've got an amazing defense coming back next year. The offensive line will be much better next season. But imagine this offense without Cedric Wilson. It's not a pretty thought. You think about what that would turn into? I don't even know. I mean, what would we be without Cedric Wilson this season? I don't think we're a winning team. Because we would have nothing in the passing game. That, or somebody would be forced to step up. And we've seen that in the past too. Number 1 receiver goes down, somebody's forced to step up. But I don't want to think about it right now. I don't think that would be fun. And that kind of brings you to we're 1 play away from not having Wilson. This is a physical game. Anybody can get hurt. Knock on wood, we don't want that to happen, but say it does. Say you don't have Cedric Wilson. What then? It's a scary thought, and I think that's why this is such a confusing season. Everybody on Twitter is talking about either how confident are we now. You beat Wyoming, you beat San Diego State. I don't know if anybody feels like this team's kind of in control of their own destiny, which they are, but it just doesn't feel that way. It even feels weird going into the Utah State game tomorrow. People aren't necessarily confident. They're not pessimistic. I think everybody's just kind of cautious. What's this team going to do? Who's this team going to be? I don't know. I don't. If I was to give you guys a prediction, I made my best prediction probably ever was I got really close on the Wyoming game. But that was more luck than anything. I mean, I don't have any idea of what's going to happen tomorrow. I would expect we'll see a lot of the same formula. And I think Harsin said as much. And, you got to give him credit. He's the guy. If he's winning games right now, if this is the formula that he thinks is going to take us there, I guess you got to believe in it. But it's just weird. Everybody's talked about it. And that's kind of what this conversation's been like on Twitter. With that, I can kind of jump into some of the questions. These aren't going to be very long podcasts until I start to figure out how to get other people in on them, get people talking with me and stuff like that. I think it's a lot more fun to listen to 2 people talk than just one. But I had the one question: how did we get the wide receivers more involved in the passing game? More wide receivers involved in the passing game. I think it's scheme. I do. I think you've got to find ways to scheme it up, pick plays, work almost all the time. You could argue they're kind of, they tend to be more of an illegal play, but until people are calling them, I'd like to see some. Heck, even some bubble screens, I guess, to some of the lesser used guys. Maybe you put Modster in a bubble screen situation. We saw that a few times, not necessarily bubble screens. We saw wide receiver screens, and people talked about how they were, 1 or 2 steps away, and maybe those do work against a defense that's not as good as Wyoming's. Wyoming does have a good defense, and you got to give them credit for that, but we'll see. maybe that's the thing that gets these guys confident. I don't know. But I think it is. I think it's scheme. I'd like to just see more deep balls, too. I'd like to see us kind of open up the passing game. But maybe that still falls on them not trusting the offensive line to give enough time for a deep ball. But that's kind of where I'm at. I'd like to see some deep balls. I'd like to see some screen plays. I'd like to see some slant and goes. Especially with Cedric Wilson, now that he had that big touchdown off the slant against Wyoming. Maybe you come out and you run a slant and go early. See if the DBs bite on it and you get a deep ball early. But that's kind of what I would think. Again, that was at PlayersMan17 asked that question. I thank you for it. Another good question we had. We'll get to the funny one from the pimp here in a minute. He's got the best questions so far, just because they're so random. I don't know where he comes up with them. This one comes from at Jeremy. I'm not gonna even butcher your last name, dude. Well, it's not even your last name. It's the last name of the Twitter handle. At Jeremy, Kawika. Kawika? I don't know. I'm not, like I said, probably butchered it. My bad. I'm sorry. But anyways, he asked me the question, probably the hardest question. If the Broncos don't win the Mountain West and finish 8-4, 9-3, well, now what? That's a tough question. My guess is you see Harsin come back. There's going to be a ton of people who are on the Fire Harsin bandwagon if we don't at least make the Mountain West Championship. We don't win it, and I still think there's going to be a lot of people who are just going to say, look, it's been too long. It's not consistent enough. People are going to want him gone. But Harsin will be back. I imagine Zach Hill's gone at that point, because if we're not winning the Mountain West, I think it's pretty obvious it's on the offense this year. Probably not Zach Hill. You probably see somebody else brought in who I'm not sure. You know, a lot of Boise State fans will scream Kellen Moore. Maybe. I doubt it. Don't want to get into that too much, but I don't think Kellen Moore ends up in Boise before he ends up a lot of other places, if he ever coaches even in college football. As a Cowboys fan, I can tell you Scott Linehan and the coaching tree that is kind of connected to Kellen, I think they love him. But Zach Hill would be gone. We bring somebody else in for offense. Cross our fingers that Avalos doesn't leave, and then just hope for something different. I just don't think there's a big change. I think fan involvement would be down a ton. I think morale. I think we're kind of on a teetering point this season. The attendance is one thing, but I just think that you see a lot of people who are finding other things to get involved with, things that people can do on their Saturdays, and people can call it bandwagon fans, people can call it whatever they want, but I think you're gonna see that. Boise State, they've got to win if they want to continue to grow, and you go 8-4 and say we end up in, I don't know, another low end bowl. I mean, I don't think you're gonna end up in the MPC bowl. I don't even know what it's called anymore. Humanitarian Bowl, Potato Bowl. It's Potato Bowl now, right? But I don't think you end up there. You probably end up like in San Diego again or something, playing a low-end team. Maybe you go 9-4 with a bowl win, and I still think you probably end up with a new offensive coordinator and stuff. That's a tough question, though. That's probably one of the toughest questions. Because I would hope that's the answer, because I assume if we're in that position, it's because of the offense. Tammy asked me a question since she didn't get to be on the show. She wanted me to talk about the power of Steve Caldwell's mustache, which kind of leads me into, I don't want to jump into it too much. Steve Caldwell does have an amazing mustache, but didn't Brian Harsin have an amazing one as well? And maybe that's the problem we're having. When Brian Harsin was at Arkansas State, I'm typing it in right now, I'm pretty sure he had like an amazing mustache at one point, didn't he? Yeah, he did. Maybe that's what we're missing. Harsin needs to bring back his mustache. And I also remember when Southwick grew a mustache, he started winning a bunch of games and his play went up. So maybe Brett Rippon needs a mustache. Maybe we need to be team mustache. That could be our problem. It could be the mustache issue. Now, as far as Steve Caldwell's, I think that's all that, I mean, he's got all the credibility in the world just because he looks like that old school football coach. I'm looking at his mustache now, too. And he's almost got like an old country mustache. Like, his mustache is just fantastic. I hope he listens to this, because I've heard it from people who meet him in person. They're all fascinated with his mustache. I imagine the players respect him because of his awesome mustache. So that's a great question. Again, if you want to follow Tammy on Twitter, it's at REFLECTIVITY, Reflectivity. Thank you for that. Hopefully we get her on the show. That's the kind of stuff that if we get Tammy on the show, I'm assuming we can talk about. We actually tweeted back and forth about it. When you talk about the best facial hair in all of sports, I mean, for me, Michael Jordan had a pretty amazing mustache at one point as well. So I would probably put Michael Jordan up there. But I don't want to give too much away just in case Tammy and I get to talk about it. The best mustaches in sports history. Maybe we take a poll online, have you guys vote, we could talk about it. Another good question that I had, again, at PSU Pimp. Everybody knows him. He asks the most interesting. Last week he asked me about potatoes, which was French fries or baked potato. This time he asked me what I would prefer aliens do to me other than the traditional probing, which I would probably say anything. I would like them to do anything but that. So, yeah, I don't I don't know what to do with that. I appreciate his questions. I guess I would rather them take my fingerprints. I have no idea. It's what a incredible question. And again, he's at BSU Pimp. His exact question was, if you were abducted by aliens, sorry. Questions got me all razzled. If you were abducted by aliens, what would you rather they do to you instead of the infamous probe? And yeah, I think it would be anything. There's not a lot of things. I mean, that's not high on my list, so I think it would be just anything. Yeah, take my fingerprints, shave my head. I don't know. All right. Well, those are the questions for this week. So yeah, I guess that's the one way to kind of leave it. One other thing I wanted to talk about before I wrap things up today was some of the other things I saw on Twitter, things that we've been talking about. The big question I got, because I'm a big Cowboys fan, do I think Kellen's done in the NFL? Was actually one of the questions from at DeBlue. That's at DEBLU. And I had some other people kind of just question, since I followed the Cowboys very closely, and then Kellen obviously being on the team. My guess is he's going to get signed by the practice squad for the rest of the season. I mean, Dak Prescott's talked about how important he is in the quarterback room. We all know he's an intelligent guy, beyond what an average NFL quarterback is, beyond what an above average NFL quarterback is. Matthew Stafford's talked about how important he was in the quarterback's room. So I think he'll get brought back to continue that. I think his relationship with the team is very, very good. My guess is next season, unless Dallas, which I don't think they will, because Cooper Rush is a guy that they brought in. They like to do this thing ever since they had success with Tony Romo being an undrafted free agent. They like to have an undrafted rookie come in, develop, compete, grow. That's what Cooper Rush is. Kellen's kind of the veteran guy that they can trust in the quarterback's room. So my guess is next year they'll bring Kellen back to compete in the preseason. I'm assuming at that point, because he's ineligible for practice squad, I don't think Dallas will take 3 quarterbacks, especially if Dak doesn't get hurt again this season. Dak shows that he's versatile, that he can take the NFL punishment. I think Cooper's another guy that they think could probably take a lot of snaps. But my guess is that Kellen will probably get pushed out at that point. From there, I don't think there's probably very many teams who are going to jump on the Kellen Moore train at this point. I think he's kind of got Linehan is his guy, that offense, everything he's done. But I don't think any other NFL teams are going to take a shot at him. So I think at that point, he'll get to decide what he wants to do. He's made it vocal that he wants to coach. I'm guessing I could even see Dallas giving him a job on the staff if he decides that he's done once he gets cut. If Linehan's back, which, by the way, Garrett and Linehan could be gone in Dallas if they continue to lose this season with all the expectations they have. But if Linehan's still around, Garrett's still around, I think there's a possibility that maybe he decides he's done, he retires from the NFL next season, takes a job with their staff. If he decides to go the college route, I'm not confident he's going to come to Boise. I know that sucks to hear, but I mean, he could end up in Cal with Justin Wilcox. He could end up, he could even end up, in Washington, which would just, I'm sure that would tear people apart in Boise. But, I just don't know if Boise's his first place that he goes. I could see him going other places to to get some experience. So again, that question came from @DeBlue. Thank you for that. That's a good question. And yeah, like I said, I think he'll end up on the practice squad for the rest of the season, get the chance to compete next season, and then probably lose out to Cooper Rush again, who Dallas seems really, really high on. And then you end up seeing Kellen in the coaching ranks, maybe in Dallas, maybe in college. I'm not sure. It's up to him. But he's had an incredible career. I think he's far surpassed the expectations. If you look at it realistically, I don't think anybody who met Kellen or talked, went to the games and saw Kellen and do all the great things that he did, for all the things the NFL is, they're not much on giving guys a shot like Kellen Moore physically, with his limitations, and he has far exceeded all those expectations, and he's had an incredible career. He's gotten paid. I think he's at the point where he gets a pension from the NFL, so good for him. He's continued to do amazing things. With that, you know what? I think I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up. Like I said, next week, I really do plan on getting Tammy in here so you get to hear another voice, not just hear me talking to myself and talking at a computer screen. I thank everybody who's listened. Last week was amazing. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this week. Thank you for the questions. Hopefully the Broncos win tomorrow. I won't give you guys my prediction until we do the Blue Chip Nation predictions. But again, Boise State, Utah State should be a good one. Boise State wins. I mean, I think once again fans are going to get more excited. We're going to go out here on some more of the Arcturus music. Back to his song, The Intro. Again, thank you to him for letting us use it on the podcast. Thank you to Derek for putting us in contact with him. Hope you guys enjoy it. If you want to check him out on YouTube. Check it out on River B Nation if you want to purchase some music. Support local hip-hop. Again, thanks for listening, guys. I'll catch you guys next week. Floating over you just chiefing, mile high, 9-5, I fly by like seasons, and my ride just heating these rhymes to the beats, and every night and weekend I'm finding ways to